There comes a strange moment in life when the noise begins to disappear. Thoughtful. For decades, almost every hour had somewhere to go. Work needed you. Your family needed you. There were bills to pay, problems to solve, places to be, deadlines to meet. Then one day, the calendar becomes quieter. The career that once gave structure to your mornings is behind you. Your children have built lives of their own. The alarm clock no longer controls when you wake, and suddenly you possess something you spent decades wishing you had. Curious time. But there is a question hidden inside that freedom. What will you do with it? Some people enter retirement believing their work is finished. They begin withdrawing from challenge. They stop learning. They stop creating. They stop testing themselves. Their world slowly becomes smaller. But others seem to do something completely different. Their bodies may age because no philosophy can defeat time. Yet something inside them remains remarkably alive. They stay curious. They keep learning. They remain useful. They build things. They teach. They walk. They read. They cultivate relationships. Their eyes still contain the unmistakable energy of someone who believes life is happening now, not someone who believes their real life ended 20 years ago. What separates these two kinds of aging? The Stoics may have given us an answer almost 2,000 years ago. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus never taught that a good life was a life of endless comfort. They taught that human beings flourish through purpose, attention, discipline, wisdom, and service. And those principles become even more important when the external structure of work begins to disappear. Retirement should not mean retiring from growth. It should mean finally having the freedom to choose what deserves your remaining time. So today, we're exploring 7 hobbies inspired by Stoic philosophy that can transform life after 60. These are not simply activities designed to kill time. Each one trains something: your attention, your mind, your patience, your body, your character, your sense of purpose. And stay with me until number 7, because it addresses something many people spend their entire lives avoiding, but which the Stoics believed could teach us how to truly live. Welcome to Stoic Mind Empire. Let's begin. Hobby 1. Walk without distraction. The first practice is almost embarrassingly simple. Walk, but not merely for exercise. Walk to notice. Most people understand the physical benefits of walking. It keeps the body moving. It supports cardiovascular health. It maintains mobility. It gets you outside. But there is another kind of walking that modern life has almost forgotten. Walking as training for attention. Think about the way most people walk today. Headphones in, phone in hand, podcast playing, messages arriving. Even while moving through the physical world, their mind is somewhere else. The Stoic approach would be different. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly reflected on nature, the changing seasons, animals, plants, the stars, the constant transformation of everything around him. Nature reminded him that he was part of something larger than his temporary worries. And there is a powerful practice hidden inside that observation. Tomorrow morning, take a walk. Put your phone away. No music, no podcast, no scrolling. For 20 minutes, allow the world itself to become your entertainment. Then give yourself one task. Find 5 things you have never consciously noticed before. Maybe it's the shape of an old tree you've walked past hundreds of times. Maybe it's the sound of birds before traffic becomes loud. Maybe it's the smell of the air after rain. Maybe it's the way morning light lands on a building. Maybe it's an elderly couple who take the same route every day. It doesn't matter what you notice. The point is that you notice. Why does this matter after 60? Because curiosity is one of the great enemies of psychological aging. A person begins becoming old in spirit when they start believing there is nothing new worth noticing. I've seen everything. I know how the world works. Nothing interests me anymore. That attitude closes the mind. Attention opens it again. Think of a child walking through a forest. Everything is interesting. A stone, a leaf, an insect, a strange sound. The child's world feels enormous because their attention is alive. Then adulthood teaches us to stop seeing. We become efficient. We move from one destination to another. The world becomes background scenery. Retirement gives you an opportunity to reverse this. You finally have time to look again. Walking can become a daily meditation on existence. And there is another Stoic benefit. When you walk without distraction, thoughts appear. Old regrets, future worries, memories, plans. Instead of immediately escaping them through your phone, you practice allowing them to come and go. You discover a thought can exist without requiring my obedience. That is Stoic training. You walk. The thought appears. You observe it, and you keep walking. Over time, something changes. Your surroundings become more vivid. Your mind becomes quieter, and the ordinary world becomes interesting again. So hobby number 1 requires almost nothing. Comfortable shoes, a safe route, 20 or 30 minutes, and attention. Do not walk merely to count steps. Walk to remind yourself that you are still here, still observing, still learning, still alive. Hobby 2. Read slowly and deeply. Seneca had an interesting criticism of readers. He believed many people read too much. That sounds strange coming from a philosopher, but Seneca wasn't attacking books. He was attacking shallow consumption. He compared the person who constantly jumps from book to book with a traveler who is always moving from place to place. Such a traveler may know many locations, but none becomes home. Modern life has made this problem dramatically worse. We consume endless information, articles, videos, posts, headlines, quotes, opinions. We know a little about everything and often understand almost nothing deeply. Stoic reading is different. It asks you to slow down, choose something worth reading, then stay with it. For someone entering retirement, reading can become one of the richest forms of companionship available. Consider what happens when you open Meditations. Marcus Aurelius has been dead for nearly 2,000 years. Yet suddenly, you are reading the private thoughts of a Roman emperor trying to control his temper, accept mortality, deal with difficult people, and become a better human being. Time collapses. A man from ancient Rome begins speaking directly into a problem you're experiencing today. Or open Seneca. You find a man writing about wealth, friendship, grief, time, aging, and death. Open Epictetus. A former slave explains why freedom ultimately depends upon learning what belongs to your control. This is one of the extraordinary gifts of books. The wisest people who ever lived remain available to you. They do not care how old you are. They do not care whether you have retired. They do not cancel the meeting. They never tell you they're too busy. Their best thoughts wait quietly on the page until you are ready. But don't turn reading into another race. You do not need to finish 50 books. Try something different. Choose one meaningful book. Read 5 pages every morning. Keep a notebook beside you. Whenever you encounter a sentence that makes you stop, write it down by hand. Then ask, why did this sentence affect me? Maybe Marcus writes about anger and you immediately think of someone you've refused to forgive. Maybe Seneca discusses time and you realize how many evenings you've been wasting. Maybe Epictetus discusses control and you recognize how much energy you've spent trying to change someone who does not want to change. Now reading has stopped being entertainment. It has become a conversation. The author speaks, you answer. This is how books transform character, not through quantity, through attention. And after 60, you possess something younger readers often lack: experience. A 20-year-old reads about grief intellectually. A 70-year-old may have buried parents, friends, perhaps even a spouse. The same sentence means something completely different. You bring decades of life to the page. That means philosophy can become richer with age rather than less relevant. Read slowly, read repeatedly. Let a few great books become old friends. You have spent decades collecting experiences. Now spend some time understanding what those experiences meant. Hobby 3. Grow something. There may be no better physical representation of Stoic philosophy than a garden, because a garden teaches you the difference between effort and control every single day. You can prepare the soil, you can plant the seed, you can water it, you can remove weeds, you can protect the plant, but you cannot command the weather. You cannot negotiate with the seasons. You cannot shout at a tomato until it grows faster. You cannot order spring to arrive tomorrow. You perform your part. Nature performs hers. This is almost a perfect demonstration of Epictetus's distinction between what depends on us and what does not. The gardener controls effort, not outcome. And that is one of the most valuable lessons a human being can learn. Think about how much unnecessary suffering comes from trying to control outcomes. We want our children to make particular decisions. We want other people to behave according to our expectations. We want plans to unfold exactly as imagined. We want our bodies never to change. We want life to respect our timetable. Then reality refuses, and we become frustrated. A garden trains another response. Do your work, then release the result. Some years the flowers thrive. Another year, insects arrive. One season produces abundance. Another disappoints you. The gardener adapts. They learn. They plant again. There is something deeply healthy about this after retirement. During a career, many people spend decades trying to make everything happen on schedule. Meetings, targets, deadlines, reports, production. Then retirement arrives, and suddenly the old rhythm no longer applies. A garden teaches a slower rhythm. Nature cannot be rushed, and perhaps you no longer need to rush either. There is also something psychologically powerful about having living things depend upon your attention. You wake up, and there is something to do. Check the plants, water them, remove weeds. Notice what changed overnight. Your morning has direction, and direction matters. It doesn't need to be a huge garden. A balcony is enough. A few herbs are enough. A tomato plant is enough. The size is irrelevant. The relationship matters. You care for something. You watch it change. You accept what you cannot command. And sometimes you receive the reward of eating something that existed because your hands helped cultivate it. But the greatest harvest may not be the vegetables. It may be patience. The garden quietly teaches, everything has a season. Growth has a season. Rest has a season. Loss has a season. Beginning again has a season. And so does your life. Do not hate the season you're in because it looks different from the one before it. Learn what this season is asking you to grow. Hobby 4. Keep a Stoic journal. One of the most influential books in philosophy began as something nobody was supposed to read. The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius was essentially private writing. Marcus wasn't sitting in an imperial palace thinking, how can I become a best-selling philosopher 2,000 years from now? He was writing reminders to himself, correcting himself, encouraging himself, examining his behavior, trying to live according to principles he repeatedly failed to meet perfectly. That is what makes the book powerful. It is not the voice of a perfect man teaching imperfect people. It is the voice of an imperfect man trying to become better. Seneca describes a similar practice. At the end of the day, he would examine his conduct. Where did I behave well? Where did I fail? What should I do differently? This kind of journaling can become especially valuable after retirement because retirement removes external structure. For decades, someone else helped structure your days. Your employer expected you at a certain time. Deadlines existed. People depended upon your output. There were consequences for doing nothing. Then suddenly much of that structure disappears. You become responsible for creating your own discipline. This is where a Stoic journal becomes powerful. Every night, answer 3 questions. First, what did I do well today? Maybe you remained patient during a frustrating conversation. Maybe you exercised even though you didn't feel like it. Maybe you called someone who was lonely. Maybe you resisted complaining. Record it, not to flatter yourself, to recognize the behavior you want to repeat. Second, where did I fall short? Perhaps you wasted 3 hours scrolling. Maybe you became unnecessarily angry. Maybe you avoided something because you were afraid. Maybe you complained about circumstances you could not change. Write it honestly, but do not insult yourself. The goal is correction, not punishment. Third, what will I do differently tomorrow? Choose one thing, not 10. 1. I will walk for 20 minutes. I will apologize. I will read instead of scrolling tonight. I will not complain about that situation again. I will call my brother. Now tomorrow has direction. 10 minutes, 3 questions, every evening. Imagine doing this for 1 year. You would possess 365 small examinations of your own character. You would begin seeing patterns, the same triggers, the same weaknesses, the same excuses, but also the same strengths, the same progress, the same evidence that you are still capable of becoming better. Age does not remove your ability to develop character. If anything, retirement finally gives you time to examine the person all those busy decades created. Hobby 5. Learn a craft with your hands. There is something deeply satisfying about creating an object that did not exist yesterday. A piece of furniture, a repaired watch, a clay bowl, a painting, a model, a leather wallet, a knitted blanket. The specific craft matters less than the process. Craftsmanship forces you into reality. Wood doesn't care about your resume. Clay doesn't care how important your former job was. A crooked measurement remains crooked. A poor joint doesn't fit. The material gives immediate feedback, and that honesty is refreshing. For decades, many people work in environments filled with abstract problems. Emails, meetings, office politics, reports, numbers on screens. Then retirement offers the chance to return to something ancient: hands, tools, materials, patience. The Stoics often compared character with craftsmanship. Virtue is not something you declare, it is something you practice until better responses become increasingly natural. A carpenter does not become skilled by reading one book about woodworking. He measures, cuts, makes mistakes, corrects them, repeats. Eventually his hands learn what his mind once had to consciously remember. Character develops similarly. You practice patience, fail, try again. Practice courage, fail, try again. Practice self-control, fail, try again. Slowly, you become different. A craft makes this process visible. Your first attempt may be terrible. Good, that is useful, because after decades of professional competence, retirement can make people afraid of becoming beginners again. But becoming a beginner is one of the healthiest things you can do. It forces humility. You ask questions, you make mistakes, you laugh at yourself, you improve. Your brain encounters unfamiliar problems again, and most importantly, you regain the excitement of progress. Yesterday you couldn't do something. Today you can do it badly. 6 months later, you can do it well. That feeling should not belong only to young people. Imagine being 70 years old and saying, "I've never done this before, but I'm going to learn." There is enormous life inside that sentence. So choose something that interests you: woodworking, pottery, painting, calligraphy, repairing old objects, model building, anything that requires your hands and attention to cooperate. Then give yourself permission to be terrible at first. You are not trying to impress anyone. You are training yourself to remain teachable. Hobby 6. Teach someone what life taught you. Modern retirement culture often asks, "What do you want to do for yourself now?" The Stoics would add another question: "What can you still do for others?" Marcus Aurelius repeatedly emphasized that human beings are naturally social. We exist to cooperate. That means a good life cannot consist entirely of private comfort. After 60, you possess something younger people cannot purchase: experience. You have made mistakes they have not made yet. You have survived problems they currently believe are impossible. You have learned lessons that never appeared in textbooks. Perhaps you spent 40 years as an electrician, a teacher, a nurse, a mechanic, a farmer, an accountant, a parent, a business owner. Whatever your path was, it taught you things. The question is, who receives that knowledge when you're gone? Mentorship transforms experience into legacy. You don't need a formal program. Maybe your student is your grandson. Maybe it's a younger neighbor. Maybe it's someone entering the profession you recently left. Maybe it's an adult child who finally wants to learn something you tried teaching them 20 years ago. Teach them, not by lecturing constantly, by helping, listening, answering questions, sharing mistakes, showing them how something is done. And here is the surprising part. Teaching helps the teacher too. When someone asks, "Why do you do it that way?" you have to think. Knowledge that became automatic must become conscious again. You organize it, explain it, question it. Sometimes the younger person introduces an idea you never considered. Now both people grow. There is another reason mentorship matters after retirement. Human beings need to feel useful, not famous, not important in some grand public sense. Useful. There is a profound difference between waking up knowing nobody needs anything from you and waking up knowing your experience can help someone. You spent decades acquiring wisdom. Do not bury it inside yourself. Pass it forward. A tree does not consume its own fruit. It produces something others can use. Let the later years of your life work similarly. Your career may be over. Your usefulness is not. Hobby 7. Practice a physical discipline that reminds you you're alive. The final practice is perhaps the most important because it confronts something no amount of philosophy can remove: mortality. The Stoics practiced Memento Mori. Remember that you will die. Modern ears often hear that and think it sounds depressing. The Stoics saw the opposite. Death makes life urgent. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that he could leave life at any moment. Why? So he wouldn't waste the day he had. After 60, mortality becomes harder to treat as an abstract concept. The body changes, recovery slows, friends begin disappearing, doctors become more familiar. The illusion of unlimited time becomes harder to maintain. There are two ways to respond. One is avoidance. Do less, move less, take fewer risks. Spend increasing amounts of time trying not to think about aging. The other is engagement. Choose a physical discipline appropriate for your body and health. Swimming, Tai Chi, walking, cycling, yoga, or properly supervised resistance training. The specific discipline matters less than consistency. What makes this stoic is your attitude toward it. You are not exercising because you believe you can defeat aging. You are exercising because today your body can still move. That makes movement a privilege. Imagine entering a swimming pool at 65. The water immediately tells you the truth. It does not care what you could do at 25. It meets the body you have today. Perhaps you swim slowly. Good, you are swimming. Perhaps your balance in Tai Chi is imperfect. Good, you are practicing balance. Perhaps the weight you lift is lighter than it once was. Good, you are still training. The ego compares today's body with yesterday's. Wisdom works with today's body. That is acceptance without surrender. And there is something beautiful about physical discipline later in life. When you are young, exercise is often about appearance. After 60, movement can become gratitude. Thank you, legs, for carrying me. Thank you, lungs, for breathing. Thank you, hands, for gripping. Thank you, heart, for continuing its work without asking for recognition. Suddenly, a morning walk becomes something more than exercise. It becomes participation in life. The Stoic does not say, "I will live forever." The Stoic says, "Because I will not live forever, I will use today." That is the heart of Memento Mori. Not fear, clarity. You don't need to become an athlete. You need to refuse unnecessary surrender. Work safely within your abilities and, where needed, follow appropriate professional medical guidance for your circumstances. Then keep showing up. Not to run away from aging. To remain fully alive while aging. The Stoic philosophy of aging. Now look at these 7 practices together. Walking teaches attention. Reading teaches wisdom. Gardening teaches acceptance. Journaling teaches self-examination. Craftsmanship teaches patience and mastery. Mentorship teaches service. Physical discipline teaches courage in the face of mortality. Notice what is missing. None of these hobbies are primarily about distraction. That is important, because distraction can fill time without giving time meaning. You can watch television for 6 hours and make the clock move. But did you grow? Did you contribute? Did you become stronger? Did you notice anything? Did you create anything? Did you help anyone? The goal after retirement should not merely be to make the days pass comfortably. The days will pass whether you help them or not. The real question is, who will you become while they are passing? Stoicism teaches that every stage of life gives you material for character. Youth gives you ambition. Middle age gives you responsibility. Later, life gives you perspective. You have seen enough to understand that many things you once worried about never mattered. You know success does not solve every problem. You know people come and go. You know possessions eventually become someone else's possessions. You know time moves faster than expected. That knowledge can make you bitter, or it can make you wise. The choice still belongs to you. Retirement is not an ending unless you decide it is. It can be the first period of your adult life where your attention finally belongs largely to you. No employer gets the best 8 hours. No career defines your identity. You have a new question. What deserves my remaining time? That is an extraordinary question. Treat it seriously. Closing. So don't try to begin all 7 tomorrow. The Stoics were interested in practice, not dramatic promises. Choose one. Tomorrow morning, take the 20-minute walk without your phone. Or open meditations and read 1 page. Plant something. Buy a simple notebook and answer the 3 questions tonight. Pick up the craft you've always wanted to learn. Call someone younger and offer your help. Or choose a physical discipline and begin practicing consistently within your abilities. 1 action. Then repeat it. Your life was not built in a day. Your next chapter will not be either. But small practices repeated for years have enormous power. Marcus Aurelius spent his life reminding himself to return to what mattered. Seneca reminded himself that time was his most valuable possession. Epictetus reminded his students to distinguish what belonged to them from what did not. And now the same challenge belongs to you. You cannot control how many years remain, but you still possess enormous influence over how those years are lived. You can spend them distracted or attentive, passive or engaged, isolated or useful, afraid of aging, or deeply grateful that you are still here to experience it. If you're over 60, your most meaningful years do not automatically belong to the past. There may still be books you haven't read, skills you haven't learned, people you haven't helped, places you haven't walked, things you haven't created, conversations you haven't had, and versions of yourself you haven't met yet. So don't ask, what do I do now that my old life is over? Ask something stronger. What can I build with the life that remains? If you're choosing one of these 7 practices, write "still growing" in the comments and tell us which one you're starting. Like this video if it gave you something useful, and subscribe to Stoic Mind Empire for more timeless Stoic wisdom on self-mastery, discipline, purpose, and living well at every stage of life. Your age is a fact. Decline is not an identity. Keep learning, keep moving, keep contributing, keep examining yourself, and above all, keep living deliberately.